So, I really thought that I was done with presidents and civil rights. Okay. We really should be discussing the voting rights history in this country since we vote for a new president in what, 3 months? Yeah. But I was lured away by one of my Audible books telling me that the 29th President of the United States took the oath of the Ku Klux Klan. I know, right? Who is the 29th President of the United States, you ask? Well, it's Warren G. Harding. Now, I know, some of you who know the tea are confused. We'll get there. Let's talk about it. Now, Warren G. Harding was the 29th President of the United States from 1921 until his death in, 1923. He was a member of the Republican Party, and he was one of the most popular sitting presidents upon his death. Word of his extramarital affair came out after his death, damaging his reputation. Yes. But according to the Washington Post, while in office, Harding was more outspoken on civil rights for blacks than perhaps any other president since Ulysses S. Grant. Now, that doesn't jive with a man who would take the oath of the KKK. So, let's do some digging. Harding comes from a family of abolitionists, and there was a rumor that one of his great-grandmothers was black. Now, in 2015, a genetic testing of Harding's descendants, 3 of them, determined with more than a 95% chance of accuracy that this was false. But at the time, they didn't have genetic testing, so this would stick with him and his family for quite some time. During a presidential campaign, I think it was 1920, opponents spread old rumors that Harding's great-great-grandfather was a West Indian black person and that other blacks might be found in his family tree. In 1940, his grandniece, Abigail Harding, she was out and about on a stroll with her baby girl, just living their best life, when a random person walked up, looked in the baby carriage, looked at the baby girl and said, "Ooh, I just wanted to see if she was black." Yeah. Anyways, when it comes to black civil rights, when Harding accepted the Republican nomination for president, he says, "No majority shall abridge the rights of a minority. I believe the black citizens of America should be guaranteed the enjoyment of all their rights, that they have earned their full measure of citizenship bestowed, that their sacrifices in blood on the battlefields of the Republic have entitled them to all of freedom and opportunity, all of sympathy and aid that the American spirit of fairness and justice demands." To somebody who says that, do they link up with the KKK? Harding's first speech to Congress called for a passage of anti-lynching legislation, but he really didn't do much more for blacks than any other Republican president. although he did ask for cabinet officers to find places for blacks in their departments. Blacks were appointed to high-level positions in the Department of Labor and Interior, and numerous blacks were hired in other agencies and departments. Sadly, Harding did not abolish segregation in federal offices. Like other presidents, Democratic and Republican, Harding saw the benefits of appeasing the Southern bloc. In fact, one of his advisors suggested that the fact that Harding received 2/5 of the Southern vote in 1920 led him to see political opportunity for his party in the Solid South. But it did not stop his speech, October 26, 1921. He gives a speech in front of a segregated crowd, 2,000 white people, 10,000 black people. And this is in Birmingham, Alabama. And he says that the social and racial differences between whites and blacks could not be bridged. But he still asks for political rights for blacks. It's in this speech that Harding called for blacks to have equal educational opportunities and greater voting rights in the South. He openly advocates for black people to have political, educational, and economic equality. Talking to the white audience, he says, "Whether you like it or not, unless our democracy is a lie, you must stand for that equality." Now, the whites are staring at him like he grew a second head, but the black section is cheering like he's the second coming of Christ. However, Harding was like, "Ooh, but I don't get down with interracial relationships, though. I draw the line there, okay?" Now, I want you to remember this speech, okay? Okay. Now, remember, at the time, blacks were mainly voting for the Republican Party. Harding said he did not mind seeing that support end if the result was a strong two-party system in the South. The South was a one-party system. It was Democratic. That's all it was. Because remember, they had disenfranchised black people. So the whites were the ones voting, and they were voting for the Democratic Party. And Harding was like, but if we can get white Republicans to vote, I'm just saying. And low-key, white Republicans were trying to get blacks pushed out of the party. He was willing to see literacy tests for voting continue if it was applied fairly to whites and black voters. But it's like he forgot this was the South. It was never going to be applied fairly. Silly man. In 1922, Representative Leonidas Dyer introduced the Dyer AntiLynching Bill. It was the second piece of anti-lynching legislation to be introduced in Congress and the first since 1900. The bill classified lynching as a federal felony punishable by up to 5 years in prison, $5,000 fine, or both for any state or city official who had the power to protect a person in his jurisdiction. Minimum of 5 years for those who participated in a lynching, and $10,000 fine to be paid by the county in which the lynching took place to be turned over to the victim's family or parents. If officers failed to equally protect all citizens, they could be prosecuted in federal court. Harding supported Congressman Leonidas Dyer's anti-lynching bill, which passed the House of Representatives in January 1922. But the bill hit the Senate and it was filibustered, like it always is and will be until 2020. What was it? 2021. We'll talk about that on Sunday. The bill was withdrawn to allow for another bill that Harding favored to be debated. That one would be blocked too. And blacks would blame Harding for the Dyer bill's defeat. Blame the Senate. It's always the Senate's fault. Actually, blame Southern white Democrats. Blame the Southern Bloc. Blame presidents who don't know how to use an executive order to make an anti-lynching bill. Okay, let's move on. Fun fact. Grandniece Abigail Harding and grandnephew Peter Harding, as well as a grandson of Harding's mistress, he fathered a child with her, were tested to see if there were any blacks in the Harding family tree. All tests came back negative. Upon learning this, Peter Harding, the grandnephew, confessed a little disappointment. He says, "I was hoping for black blood. I was hoping for black blood." Oh. Don't know what to tell you, buddy. Next time, we will continue our investigation into Harding and the oath he supposedly took to join the KKK when we discuss Birth of a Nation, the KKK, and Harding.